In 2019, Noisy Pixel attended our first PAX West, where we stumbled upon a game called Elsie and a developer known as Night Shift Games. From then on, I knew this would be a title I would follow to its release, and lo and behold, 5 years later, here we are. Thankfully, the game has always been enjoyable to experience through various early access tests and demos. Still, roguelike games require a refined game flow that keeps players playing across multiple failed attempts. Although the challenges are high, Elsie brings some unique systems to the genre that allow it to stand out. Elsie takes place in a world protected by a group of androids known as the Guardians. A researcher named Dr. Gray is responsible for creating these robots, but they've recently gone offline and there are reports of chaos spreading across planet Ekis. To fight back against the Guardians, Dr. Gray created Elsie, who must journey through biomes in search of them to bring them back to the lands. After the first boss, things start to become a bit more clear that Dr. Gray and Elsie are in for a difficult fight ahead of them. A mysterious hacker has compromised the Guardians, and the ethics and responsibilities of these androids are put on the line. As Elsie puts herself in danger to rebuild a haven for survivors, the narrative dips into some rather emotional places. Elsie is still very young, and her curiosity and excitement are often portrayed during scenes with Dr. Gray and even adversaries. Her loyalty is never questioned, but she does learn to make her own decisions, which is nice to see from a narrative standpoint. That said, I don't think that the supporting cast outside of Dr. Gray receives any significant growth. After you defeat the Guardians, a new character is unlocked, and you're free to enjoy some pretty fun roguelike gameplay systems, which we'll get into now. Elsie is a roguelike bullet hell, but a lot is going on under the hood, which tells me that balance and refinement is likely what was the most significant reasons for all the delays over the years. The game is rather challenging, but the slow burn of new items, store options, and overall loadout customization shows that the team put a lot of work into understanding how far to push the player and keep them coming back for more. Like any roguelike, you lose many of your resources upon death, but you retain special bolts and coins used to upgrade your base and unlock new items. And just a tip for you to remember that the only way to guarantee you have an item at the start of a run is to buy the weapon or stat boost before the run, which will equip it. However, if you die, you'll lose it, and the only way to get it back is during a run to find it randomly popped up in a store for purchase. I'm not sure I like this implementation of items, but I will say it makes the game much more challenging, because you can't choose your loadout before a run. The platforming and shooting physics of Elsie takes some getting used to. Honestly, it took me almost 8 runs with the first boss to understand Elsie's movements and abilities and how to use them properly in combat. Elsie has a few base skills across every run. For instance, she can dash, which does count as an attack. However, there aren't any iframes for this move. If you want to parry or counter, you'll have to press the left shoulder button before the attack lands to avoid it. Although there's a brief cooldown, I did end up enjoying this system. That said, it's definitely a pain point after its introduction, but after some practice and understanding of the moveset, the action becomes seamless. I still wish that there was iframes in the dash though, because sometimes old habits die hard. Alternatively, Elsie has a few abilities on cooldowns that require SP to use. These moves can be pretty powerful, but they also need a base level of knowledge to use properly. For example, the default beam locks you into place when you use it, making you susceptible to damage, and I wasn't able to dodge out of it. Further, simply understanding how drones or spells work comes with time, which only becomes easier the more time you put into the game. One interesting system is after multiple attempts, the stages do seem to get a bit kinder with upgrades and loadouts. While this doesn't quite make the boss fights any easier, I like that the devs want you to succeed. However, the challenge returns tenfold after you beat that boss and head to the next biome. Further, the main menu also contains other accessibility options for those who are finding things too challenging. After entering a stage for the first time, survivability is difficult considering you don't have access to rest areas, which are called bonfires here, but they're just vending machines. After you die, you can then unlock these rest points using bolts. If you keep playing at a steady pace, bolts can unlock more upgrades from Dr. Gray, and meal tickets can be used for special boosts on a particular run. So let's suppose you're curious about the depths of this roguelike. Well, in that case, I'll say that everything that genre fans would expect is here, with a high ceiling for challenge, but option for players to sink time into unlocking items to make the experience more accessible. The bosses are also of significance as they really test your skills, whether you're playing a stage boss or guardian. I was very impressed with these enemies' sheer variety and moveset. As you can see, there's a lot to the game flow and moveset of Elsie. This leads to some genuinely chaotic and insane moments of fights. During runs, you'll enter locked areas where you must fight waves of enemies. Depending on your loadout, the sheer insanity of everything happening is impressive to see play out. However, there are a lot of systems in Elsie that I generally just forgot about or didn't need. For instance, I never relied on SP abilities or utilized the ground pound much. Further, special stages where you just have to hit targets for items are made redundant once you unlock fireflies that just hone in on the target so you don't have to do much to hit them. There are just several cases where one system does the same thing as another, or maybe it just feels half developed here and there. Focusing on the most fun aspects of Elsie, the dodge and parry action flow with bullet hell projectiles is more than enough to justify playing. There seems to be a lack of budget in some cases when you see the limited menu UI or minimal way to interact with your base, making me believe that future upgrades to this game are on the way to spread the quality across each aspect of this package. The experience now is a bit messier than I would have liked, but it's still enjoyable and exciting to see from a system standpoint. It doesn't go unnoticed how each weapon is unique and brings a completely new dynamic to every match, which can be said about each aspect of this game, including the magic, food, and boss design. Elsie is a well-developed roguelike bullet hell. Gamers looking to enjoy a Mega Man X-inspired romp against bosses that would humble any of the series' greats should play it. That said, from a system standpoint, Elsie is entirely unique. It could definitely use a sequel that takes everything that works here but removes the bloated systems that aren't heavily used. Regardless, Elsie only gets better the more you play, so that's what I encourage you to do. Noisy Pixel is giving Elsie a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by Kirby Gamers, providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.